Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FA Live. My name is Caitlin Brower. I am the Director of PR, Social Media, and Events here at First Advantage. And I'm also your host for FA Live, our lovely live series on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We have an incredible episode today, and mainly because I'm interviewing probably one of my favorite people in the world. So I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest, Brian Skinner, Senior Key Account Sales Executive. And the topic today, as you can see on the bottom of our screen, is smarter screening, evolving tech hiring for a new era. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today on FA Live. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah. Hey, Caitlin. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. It's great to virtually see everybody. Very excited to be here. I've been a big fan of FA Live for quite some time and Sterling Live in its previous life. So I've watched a lot of these and I'm really excited to be a guest on the show today. But quick intro on myself, 20-year background screening industry veteran. Started in the space 20 years ago at a small division of Axiom Corporation known as AISS. Sterling acquired them, and then ultimately First Advantage acquired Sterling. So kind of shifted around the industry in a couple different ways, but actually started my career like actually doing background checks, doing some of the criminal record investigations, like sitting there back in the old days before technology did a lot of this stuff, searching through stacks of like names and punching in stuff to a computer, looking for potential criminal records. That was my life for 8 hours a day. So did that for a while, moved over to sales in 2010, and I've kind of been selling into this space for quite a while. Everything from SDR, mid-market sales, enterprise, global, and then following the First Advantage Sterling combination, kind of a strategic role selling primarily into technology, media, and entertainment. So great to be here. Look forward to today.
Absolutely. A 20-year vet who actually got his hands dirty with the background checking. So we love to hear that. And I will say for 20 years of that experience, I did, say at the beginning, Brian is one of my favorite people. And mainly because I've been in background screening for about 6 years now. I've just learned so much from him. And you guys are going to learn so much from him on today's episode. So let's go ahead and dive in. But I quickly want to remind our audience, if you're watching live on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, if you have any questions for Brian throughout the episode, you can put them in the comment section across all three of these platforms, and I will get them over to him as I see fit. And then we'll do a quick call for questions at the end too. So don't worry, plenty of time to get your questions in. But I have a lot, so we're going to start with me. So let's dive into tech industry background check. So I've got about 5 questions here for you, so decent amount. But sure. Let's start with walking us through your experience with tech customers and what sets their needs apart in the background screening space.
Yeah, great question. And that's, there are definitely some unique things that, tech firms bring to the table that I've learned over the years as well, because I've sold into different spaces in the past. So I would say tech as an industry when it comes to background checks is maybe not quite as nuanced as like some other regulated industries, transportation, healthcare, finance that have like really specific products built for those industries that are sometimes just a good idea to do or required by law in some cases or by credentialing bodies and things like that. Tech, though, there's a couple of things that come to mind. They're companies that we all know and use probably all day, right? In our personal lives and our professional lives. So from what I've noticed with them, they're typically hiring and recruiting like very highly skilled, highly compensated positions, what we see. So most of the time, they're companies that are willing to go the extra mile and really run a robust, like best in class background check that we would typically recommend, and they're okay paying for it. So instead of just checking like criminal check and calling it a day, hey, they're willing to go out and verify if, Caitlin, you've got an advanced degree that might be required for your use in quantum computing research or AI or some other advanced field that really is in high demand right now. So that's probably the first big one, is just like going after that type of candidate. I think the other thing that comes to mind is just like where they're pulling candidates from. Again, this is like, the Apples, the Googles, the Metas of the world, like they're hiring, they want the best people for the role, no matter where they are in the world. So they have a much bigger, I think, shift or mindset into like global hiring. So not just looking at candidates from the US, but hey, if we found the best candidate, they're in Australia, Singapore, Japan, you name it, they want that candidate and they're willing to go out and again, spend the money, go the extra mile and really check that person out no matter where they are in the world correctly. That's probably the other thing from like just a general like landscape standpoint. I think the other thing that's intuitive to tech is just, hey, these are folks that are in tech. they expect a tech forward platform. So they're expecting like a modern, mobile, intuitive experience when they're going through a background check as a candidate, and also them as a customer, right? They expect, mobile first technology, they expect automation, they expect AI built in. So they're very tech forward, of course, and they expect that from their partners and their vendors like us as well.
So the one point you brought up two areas that I want to expand in a little bit. The one is global, but we'll get to that. That's my third question for you. But to follow up, you said that tech companies, one of the examples is that, they just won't do a standard criminal check and that's one and done. So what are the other main elements that they're looking for when prioritizing their background screening process?
Yeah, great question. A lot of things, and it kind of depends on the role in the company. But in terms of, criminal checks, some newer things in the space, like the concept of it's going to sound crazy, but verifying your candidate's identity. So actually making sure that Brian Skinner actually is Brian Skinner when you actually hire him, and he's the same guy on paper that he is in person. So I think that's something that, we're seeing across all of our customers, not just tech, but tech, they get it and they see a real need to do that just based on things going on in the industry and in the news and all that. So identity verification is one. I think they're also embracing, or probably one of the verticals, we'll call it, that embraces things like social media screening. So that concept and that product has been around for quite a while of hey, don't just rely on court records and verifying data. Let's take a look at Brian's social media footprint, because the kind of things that he's saying, commenting, interacting with, doing online in his private life might be a good reflection of how he's going to act working for us at the business. So they tend to adopt that, looking at someone's social media footprint, looking across the web for, different things, good or bad, that might be tied to Brian, for example. But then it's all the other basic stuff too. They might want to verify his education if he's in a position that requires some sort of advanced degree, maybe a professional certification, that could be into play as well. So they're verifying that, employment history, criminal checks, sex offender registry checks, all the various database and sanction checks that we do today. So it kind of varies on the position, but they really tend to run the full gamut of what more equivalent to an executive level background check, but they're doing that on everybody, not just their executives.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I said I wanted to go back to global. But I also want to loop in kind of this remote work adoption as well. So have you seen any shifts in background checks, how background checks are being used in that post kind of remote work environment, but then also in global hiring as well?
Yeah. Great question. A couple of points. I think it kind of goes back to my previous answer on that question, was this concept of identity verification has really taken off substantially for us. So that's been it's been a big shift, I think, primarily in this remote work environment following COVID and stuff, where you're a lot of times hiring folks that you've never met. Maybe you've seen them on a video interview like this, or maybe you've met them once or twice, but really just making sure that you are actually hiring the person you think you are. So that's kind of been a key concept of just, focusing on that right at the front end of the background check, not waiting till they're hired in your organization and you're running their I-9 verification. And that's when you realize wow, we have an issue. This actually isn't the person we think he is. So that's probably key. I think the other thing, it also kind of ties into the previous question, is companies we're seeing are now screening globally to the same standards that they would in the US, which is a much more mature market for background checks and for employment screening. So whether this is a US company that just has a big footprint outside of the United States, and now they're screening all of their candidates all over the world to those same standards, they're not doing a watered down check simply because it's less costly. Or these are multinational companies that are just based overseas, and they're now saying, hey, we kind of have to follow in these footsteps and actually start screening candidates for all the big stuff, criminal, education, employment. So I think those are probably the two big things that I've noticed in the industry since the early 2020 timeframe.
And it perfectly matches up to what you said before, that tech companies are going to hire the best person no matter where they are located. But to go in on that a little bit further, have you seen any of the customers that you work with, how they changed kind of their hiring strategies to get the best of the best?
Yeah. It sounds simple, and especially for tech. Again, these are folks that work with tech, so they expect technology to be smooth, simple, easy, intuitive, in their daily lives. And I think that's what companies have been focused on. It's really focusing on the candidate experience, because a lot of times the background check is one of the first interactions a candidate might have with a company. It's not the company themselves, it's an extension of them. It's us doing the background check, right? So that's the first experience. And I think companies that we talk to regularly, they're very concerned and just want to make sure that, hey, the experience our candidates go through with you all at First Advantage is going to reflect that of ourselves, right? So they want a mobile first, intuitive, just easy and simple to use experience for their candidates, get them through that process as quickly as they possibly can, and just get them onboarded easily and ready to work for us. So I think that's been the biggest focus that we've seen thus far.
Let's add on to like the tools and technology aspect of this conversation, because you mentioned, identity. You just mentioned like a mobile experience. Are there any other tools and technology that you'd like to share with our audience that are being used currently to streamline a background screening process?
It's another good one too. Yes. The answer is yes. There's a lot. There's some tried and true like technology that has been used for many years by companies of all shapes and sizes. So something simple as like an integration with an HCM or an applicant tracking system to just really make the candidate experience better, because we can now maybe pre-fill data that the candidate has just applied with, in Workday, and it's going to pre-fill to the background check experience. The candidate's not having to like type all that stuff out again. So that's just kind of making it simple, right, for the recruiter, also for the candidate on the front end. There's things like our client matrix application product that just actually take a company's hiring criteria, smash it into our system, and by the time they get a result on a background check, they know that, hey, it's not that Brian has a hit somewhere on his criminal record. We know it's a hit that actually matters to us for that specific role. So that's CMA, and we kind of use that as an efficiency tool. But then some of the newer stuff, you hear about things like responsible use of AI. That's changing our industry very quickly. And I think it will continue to just like, hey, let's normalize criminal record statutes across the different states so that people don't have to be pros and like reading court dockets in all states when they get results from us. So I think leveraging AI, we'll see an increased focus on that. And then just the basics like mobile responsive design, not just for candidates, but also like for client users, because, we see most of our customer users are on a laptop or a desktop like this today, like accessing the client side of the background check experience. But a lot of folks, when they're back to traveling and stuff, they're on the road. They need to launch a background check from the road. They might need to check a status. They might need to kick off adverse action. So we've really paid a lot of attention to that and just built a great mobile experience for not just candidates, but also for customer users.
Yeah, we had a really cool AI and candidate experience conversation at our customer event Collaborate back in April. So definitely a hot topic right now. And we very much look forward to expanding that story, externally and really getting to share a lot of that good stuff. Yeah. So speaking of customers, that's where I want to shift our focus now, because you shared such a great landscape of where the tech industry is from a hiring standpoint, a background screening standpoint. So a tech company now becomes a customer of First Advantage. Let's talk about that support model. So how does First Advantage's verticalized structure enhance our customer support?
Yeah, that's been a big shift for us. So we did that at Sterling prior to the combination of the two companies. First Advantage did as well. And it's really been a game changer of just really setting up the support model to align to specific verticals or industries. So you don't have a retail customer being managed by a team that really specializes in healthcare, for example. Not that they would do great work, but we've really found a great success of just like grouping like customers together, and they work with customer success partners and a customer success team that work with just tech or just healthcare or just finance. Right. And it really allows them to just kind of learn the business a little bit, learn what's important to them in that specific industry, and just really, share the secret sauce that maybe they've learned with another like customer, maybe encountering a similar challenge that they are, and they can just share that knowledge very quickly and easily. So yeah, we're organized kind of based on vertical, and we found a great level of success in doing so.
Can you share some of the ways that we're uniquely supporting technology customers?
Yeah. A couple different ways. I think just on the front end, we do try to learn the customer. We try to learn their business. So, hey, you're in tech. Let's talk about the roles you're hiring for. Like, where do you typically pull candidates from? What are the challenges that you see recruiting and screening folks today? And maybe we can help kind of just provide some best practice guidance with that based on like our experience working with, many of them in the space as well. So, we work with like customers. We try to speak their language. We do have a lot of like other, tech focused events. You mentioned Collaborate. We'll come back to that, but like we do these tech leadership councils typically like once a quarter. And that's essentially where we get some of our top customers in the tech space together, and they meet with our customer success team, and they kind of just, again, it's a knowledge share, it's networking. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what you're dealing with this quarter, and just really sharing some of those successes and challenges with their peers, right? So we found a lot of just really positive feedback coming out of those sessions. We do them usually once a quarter, and they're highly attended by most of our tech clients and our customer success team. That's what
I love our leadership councils across the board. It's such a great adoption for the organization and to really help support our customers. I think back to myself when I started in social media many, many years ago. B2B social media was not really existent. So when I got the opportunity to sit down with other B2B marketers and share the challenges, but also the successes, that's really what gets you to the next level, really talking amongst your peers, but then having First Advantage there to then share that support and to be there to address those challenges. So again, love our leadership councils. It's just such a great strategy for us. And then collaborate. I mentioned it. You mentioned it. I'd love to talk about it a little bit more. That is such a standout opportunity that we offer our customers. Can you just share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Collaborate. It blew my socks off. It was a great event. My first time attending, your first time attending. I think a lot of us secretly on the Sterling side, I was secretly jealous of that because I would see that show every year and say, man, this is a great event. It looks like it's getting bigger and bigger every year. So I was always a big fan of it from the sidelines, and then really was thrilled to be able to attend this year and just really experience it firsthand, see what it's all about. Even for me, that's been in the space 20 years, right? Like this industry is changing a lot. So you're never going to run out of things to learn. So I had a great time just, networking with customers, in tech and outside of tech, talking to partners, learning about what's coming in the future of background screening, hearing from folks like Pam Devada, in terms of compliance and the things that are coming down the pipe. So for anybody that's like in the background screening world, you're using First Advantage today, you're considering working with us, I would highly recommend you attend it because I think it will absolutely be well worth your while. So had a great time. It was a blast in Miami this year.
And we are prepping for 2026 already. So I cannot wait. It'll be our 10th year. So it's going to be an incredible event next year in 2026. So
absolutely.
All right, moving on. Can you share a success story where First Advantage's support made a measurable impact for a technology customer?
Yeah, this one I prepped for because I was thinking, man, there's a lot of good examples I can think of, but I think the one that came to mind for me, and it's maybe a unique use case, was really when we were pitching AT&T 5-6 years ago, right? So that was really the thing that came to my head of wow, this was a measurable impact that customer success made, really not just after they were a customer and live, but actually well up front during the sales process. So in that case, everybody knows AT&T, great partner of ours, great company. They went to RFP. It was a very lengthy process, and we had a lot of folks involved. So a lot of trips to Dallas, a lot of meetings, a lot of Zoom calls, all of that stuff. We typically as a business would involve the client success team or who would eventually manage that business for us well early on in the sales process. So we would take the client success team with us to those meetings, right? And we really started forming that relationship very early on, just so they know the customer. They know why things are being set up the way they are. They know what are the current pain points, the challenges, what they're really looking for in a new partner. And it really got to the point where I almost felt like I took the back seat as the sales rep in that deal. And the client person was actually now the lead because they said, hey, I'm going to be working with Jessica once we're live from day one. So I'm going to start to actually just engage with her before the contract's even signed. So I think that for me stands out as a great success story just because it was a very lengthy, multi-year approach, a lot of collaboration, a lot of just best practices, recommendations, and just good stuff came out of that. Jeff Ellis, who owns the program at AT&T today, he joined us at Collaborate this year. So I think one unlimited had a great time. I think he was there with his wife. They had a blast. Also shared great feedback that he learned a lot and was really just thankful that he attended. And I think we cut up a couple video clips from him maybe at the show. So I think more to come from that probably soon. I'll tease that out there. But that one stands out in my head as just a kind of maybe not typical experience, but just good example of customer success getting involved early and often and just really helping us grow that relationship for many, many years.
Yes, Jeff and AT&T are true champions to our company. So we always say thank you and really, really appreciate that. And that story is just a true testament to talk about your journey with First Advantage, from the first point of contact to implementation day to celebrating your 10-year anniversary with us. The whole process is seamless. So Brian does partner with customer success. Then we get the implementation team. And then here's what it looks like again, 10 plus years from now. So just truly incredible work to you and the team for that story. And I absolutely love it. And I look forward to going well beyond the years with AT&T and our other clients as well.
Absolutely.
Let's look to the future. Let's talk about future innovation, because that's always fun and that's always a hot topic that people want to hear about for sure. So how do you see the future of hiring and background screening evolving? And then, in general or specifically within tech?
Yeah, great question again. So I think a couple things come to mind for me in terms of like where I see this going, because it's changed a lot from the days in the mid 2000s when I'm like doing criminal record checks, typing names out before automation kind of took that over, to now. It's been a huge shift. And I think we're going to see an equally large shift, over the next 5, 10, 20 years. I'm still doing this then. I think identity first becomes the standard. So the concept, again, of verifying your candidate's identity as the very first step in the screening process before you even launch a background check will become the standard. It's kind of just a misnomer in the space that a lot of folks assume that's somehow done with a traditional background check. But truth be told, if you're not running some sort of identity validation or verification, it's not. You're really relying on the candidate in the honor system to put in truthful data about themselves that's hopefully theirs in the background screening process. So we've seen a tremendous amount of success over the last 5 or so years since rolling that out. And I think that becomes a standard for everybody. It's kind of like your social security trace, right? Is like a standard in the US screening market. Identity verification is going to be 1 and 2 with that product. So I think that happens pretty quickly. In tech specifically, we've gotten some great feedback on our annual trends report, which I believe we're talking tomorrow. We've got a webinar on that. So make sure to tune in, everybody, to that. But more than half of tech customers that we surveyed during that agreed. And they said, identity verification is the number one thing on our minds at this point, just based on not just validating that Brian is Brian, but making sure that they're not hiring somebody for a job and then somebody else actually does the job remotely behind the scenes. So that's been a trend that we've seen in the space as well. So let's see, that's identity. I think a couple other product level things that have been around for a while is this concept of post-hire monitoring of your current workforce. So not just screen somebody on the way in the door and then, hey, maybe you run an annual check on them every 2 to 5 years, but actually the concept of monitoring the current workforce. And maybe it's just segments of the workforce that have interaction with customers or children or vulnerable population type folks, making sure that they're actually keeping a clean record from a criminal standpoint while they're under the scope of your employment. So I think that product's been around for, around 10 years at this point. It's kind of been slower to take off than we would have liked in all markets, but in markets like using an AT&T or a DirecTV, for an example, sending technicians into customers' homes, they have a very vested interest in making sure they're not sending someone into a customer's home the day after they had a violent arrest for some sort of violent felony. So I do see that continuing to become more mainstream of let's not just screen candidates. Let's also kind of continually screen the current workforce to make sure folks are still people we want working for us. So I see that happening. I think I touched on social media earlier. That's also a product it's been around for a while. To this point, it's been highly regulated to more senior level management, so people managers, executives. Those are kind of what companies historically have used social media and deep web searches for. I do see that as costs come down and that process gets quicker and more efficient. I see companies specifically in tech too, to really start adopting that for everyone in the space, not just those executives or senior leaders, but every employee they come in the door, they want to make sure that their behavior, stuff they're doing, from a cultural standpoint on social media aligns with the company's mission and standards, so to speak. So that's kind of where I see it going. I'll tease this kind of goal that we have here at First Advantage from a corporate standpoint. And really what we aim to do over the next couple of years is get to the point where we can deliver a 10-minute background check. US market, it's probably not going to be everywhere, but really driving towards using automation, leveraging smart and responsible AI to get to the point where we can say, hey, we can deliver a background check in the US market in about 10 minutes for most candidates. So that's kind of just something that we're working towards internally. It's a corporate goal and something that I think would be extremely exciting. We've kind of mentioned this kind of in meetings to folks and they said, wow, if you can deliver that, you guys have the market, right? Everybody would buy that in a second. Because that's a challenge today, obviously, is getting background checks done accurately, but also quickly so you can onboard talent faster. But that's, hopefully that happens in the future. And I'd be very excited about it. I think those are a couple things, though, that come to mind from my point of view.
Well, the future is definitely bright. So, as we continue to look to the future and as you continue to work with many tech companies across the board, can you provide any advice to them when they're looking to improve their hiring and screening processes?
Yeah. Check out First Advantage, right? That's my
Yeah.
first. Check us out if you're not working with us today. In all seriousness, though, like the industry's changing very quickly, very, very fast. There's new things happening from a product and technology standpoint every day. So I would say make sure that you're doing, some sort of annual checkup, right, with your current provider, whether you're going out to like a full-blown RFP or maybe just talking to a couple providers in the space. We'd love it to be us, of course, but like do an annual checkup. Kind of just benchmark your program against what else is out there in the space, not just from a pricing point of view, but also from a service level and a technology and a user experience point of view. So definitely do that. Embrace automation, embrace AI. That's coming. I don't think anyone's going to stop it at this point, but folks with AI kind of fall into two camps. I'm like all in on AI, so I love it. I use it all the time in the right ways. And other folks are kind of scared, like, well, what does this mean for me? Like, is this taking over the world? Is this the Terminator scenario? Like, I'm kind of nervous. So I think, but I would embrace it, encourage you to embrace it, and then ask questions. If you're talking to somebody that says, yes, we use AI in our screening process, dig deep, right? Like, how are you using it? How are you making sure that it's effective and it's responsible and going to better your program? So definitely do that. And then just be open-minded. I think a lot of times we go into meetings and customers tell us, hey, we need you to set up our program exactly the way it is with our current provider, who they're leaving, by the way. And we say, well, hey, like maybe we can offer some like just good recommendations on how we've seen things work well with other folks in like the tech space. So yeah, I'd say just be open-minded to new ways of doing things. Value feedback from not just like the senior leaders that are sitting around the table making the decision on a new provider, but also your end users that are like leveraging the solution on a daily basis, because far too often that gets overlooked. And we see like that feedback from like the line level leaders using the background screening process and tool today is extremely critical. Yeah. A lot of times they share like the best feedback. So a couple notes to keep in mind for sure.
I think that's great advice. And a theme that I've been seeing, I know we're pretty early on in FA Live. We've only had about 6 or 7 episodes, but something that's been apparent on every episode is ask the question. So if you are working with us or you potentially might start working with First Advantage, just ask if you want to mold your program in this certain way. Do we have the capabilities to do it? Ask if there's a new way to do things. Ask about AI, ask about the software, ask about the technology and all of that stuff. So we're here to help and to always, again, ask those questions to your provider. So really good advice. And to close out the questions I have for you, Brian, do you think that there's one thing or a couple things that you're seeing companies often overlook in background screening that could make a big difference? Maybe it's like you said before, like making changes, not the standard, what you had previously. But is there anything else maybe being overlooked?
Yeah, we see it a lot. So like in the sales role, we work and respond to like a lot of RFPs, and we work with procurement teams a lot. And like really we see a lot of like requirements laid out in writing that we respond to. But I think what gets overlooked a lot is like a lot of the details are what get overlooked. So, not just saying, hey, we're checking criminal record checks for our candidates, but all right, are you checking, just their primary name? Are you checking their alias names or maiden names, all their address history over the last 5, 7, 10 years? What types of third-party fees are you seeing on your background check as well? So like a lot of times you're looking at a spend component of like a competitive bid. You get pricing, but hey, what's missing a lot of times is in fine print, these third-party fees that are passed through, and some of them can get quite excessive. So like, I think that gets overlooked a lot. Talk about things like your workflows, right? Like what's the right workflow to get your verifications done? How many attempts do you want us making to employers? Is there a way to leverage technology like First Advantage's verified product to like speed that up and just make it quick and easy? So I think those get overlooked a lot. Automation, just ways to improve processes get overlooked a lot because companies often come into these like analyses and just kind of say, hey, here's how we've always done it. Here's how we want to do it. Give us your best price for that solution, instead of just saying, pretend we've never talked. We don't have a program today. Pitch us like you're a new customer and just like, what's that look like? So the details get overlooked a lot, but I would say, to your point earlier, like ask good questions, spend the time on it, dig deep, and don't rush to a decision at that point.
Wow, 30 minutes and 50 seconds in. And this was just, so much information that you shared, Brian. It was such incredible information. I do want to take a quick second and let our audience know if you have any final questions for Brian to send them through right now. We did get a couple of hellos in the chat across LinkedIn. So saying hi to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And then Brian, your friend, our lovely friend, Kevin Miller, has propped you up in the chat to reach out to you for all things identity if you're in the tech space. So great shout out there from Kevin as well. But while we wait for any final questions from the audience to come in, Brian, I'd love to just get some final thoughts from you today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Kevin, for the shout out. Thanks everybody for watching today. I hope this was helpful. Yeah, final thoughts. I don't have a ton. Thanks for everyone for just joining today and watching. But I think in terms of like the screening industry is changing quickly. It's an exciting time, I think, to be in the space. There's new products, solutions, automations like coming on like a weekly or monthly basis. So I think it's just really an exciting time to have this as part of your job role. We feel really important that we kind of touch every candidate that comes in the door at most of the world's leading companies. So like for us, this is just bread and butter, and it's what we do, right? And we feel we have a great impact on companies, hiring the best talent across the board. So yeah, in closing, just thanks for the time. I think if you guys have questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or the team here. We'd love to talk with you guys about how we can really improve the program.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many ways you can get in contact with us. Like Brian had said, feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn. You can follow our corporate social media accounts where you can send us a message and my team happily will route you to the right people. You can also visit our website, fadv.com, and you can see a long list of industries that we support. So for today's episode, if you're specifically in the tech industry, you can go overhead to the technology page and you can get in contact with someone there as well. With that being said, Brian, thank you so much for joining me today. This was really great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for everybody for watching. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone who is tuned in live, and thank you for everyone who is watching on demand. And I will catch you all on the next episode of FA Live. I think it's on June 4th, but more to come there. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff moving into the summer months. But again, thank you everyone, and I will catch you on the next episode.